What's good, y'all? Solomon here. I hope you're having a great day. Before we get into today's Hippopotamus Defense video, I wanted to mention that I'm giving out a 30% off discount code for both of my online courses, including the Hippopotamus Defense. Okay, if you're interested in that 30% off sale, all you got to do is go down to the description below or the pinned comment. You will see the link there. Click on that link and plug in the discount code June 2024, and you will receive 30% off on the course. Okay, hundreds have gotten it. Many have told me that they have enjoyed it, and I'm not selling something I don't believe in. Okay, I really do believe in the Hippopotamus Defense as a very underrated, very strong weapon for white or black, either side. And I've used it exclusively as white and black to reach the National Master title in OTB tournament play. I beat GMs, IMs, and quite a few high-level players with it. And I don't say that to brag, but more to say that I really do think the Hippo works. There's a ton of benefits behind playing it. I think one of them is you're just taking your opponent out of their theory. I don't care what you play. If you play, let's say I'm playing as black. If you play the King's Indian attack, if you play the Danish gambit, if you play the Vienna game, it doesn't matter. Because when I play the Hippo, all that theory goes out the window. Okay, and your opponent's going to sit there and probably be kind of looking around like, what on earth's happening? I've never seen this in my life. You, on the other hand, you play it every game and you're growing in your comfortability. So yeah, I mean, I could keep going on why I think the Hippo is so strong. Again, I've been playing it exclusively as both colors and have been enjoying it a ton and getting pretty good results with it. So one other thing I do want to mention before getting into the video is that this course is not just for advanced Hippo players. Okay, it takes you from not knowing what the heck the Hippo is to a pretty strong level of mastery. That's the goal, right? So this is not like, oh, if you don't know X, Y, and Z, you can't get the course. I start at 0 and I build my way up from there. All that to say, if you do get the course, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see y'all over in the main video. Let's get it. In today's video, we're going over 4 out of the 6 games that I played over Memorial Day weekend. I ended up deciding to come back to competitive chess. I haven't played for nearly a year since I earned the National Master title by playing nothing but the Hippo, surpassing the rating of 2200. Now, the reason I haven't played for so long is partly because I wanted to focus more on the channel, focus more on courses, private lessons with students, coaching, all that kind of stuff. But another reason was because I was just worried about dropping under 2200 elo. It's like, look, I got my goal. I got the National Master title. Why do I have to keep playing, right? What's the point? But, I was talking to a friend about it, and here's the thing. If you earn a title in chess, whether it's NM, FM, GM, whatever, you can't lose it, right? And I think that's fair. I mean, if someone becomes a GM at the age of 30, and they play until the age of 85, right? I mean, their rating over those 55 years will probably decrease, right? But that doesn't mean they lose the GM title. In fact, if you did make it so people could lose their GM title, that incentivizes people to stop playing, right? Because they have nothing to gain and everything to lose. So all that to say, I can't lose the National Master title, and that's kind of why I returned to it. I just felt like, hey, I mean, what is there to lose here? I want to play. I want to have fun. I want to push myself. I want to show you guys the new developments and in my game and how I'm approaching certain situations. And all that to say, this last tournament, I was a little bit rusty. Okay, the rust showed. I knew that it would. Obviously, you hope it doesn't. But over the board chess is just different. If you haven't done it before, I'm not just talking about over the board blitz with a friend. I'm talking about games that can go up to 5-6 hours long. There really is a type of zone and a type of energy and mental concentration that you have to be ready for, right? And over this past year, I've been playing a lot of blitz. I've been doing tactics. I've been doing coaching, all this kind of stuff. I've been learning a lot. But to just throw yourself into a 5-6 hour game, 4, 5, 6 hour game potentially over, a weekend, right? And you're doing this over and over and over again. It's mentally taxing. It's exhausting. And you kind of have to work your way up to it. So all that to say, I'm planning on playing in the National Open in Las Vegas and just very, very soon here. And if you do make it there, right, if you do make it to the National Open, say what's up. I'd love to meet you. Maybe we could, just talk it up. I'm going to be playing the 2-day schedule, but the day before that, I'll have some time to chat. But all that to say, I want to do, as well as I can in the National Open in Las Vegas. And because of that, I decided to play in this tournament to warm up. Okay, we're going to be going over the 4 decisive results that I had, my 2 wins and my 2 losses. The 2 draws, we could cover them, but they're honestly just really boring. Not much happened. Neither side really made a mistake or played anything crazy. Just kind of played itself out. So we're going to start out, we're going to go round by round, right? So I ended up winning rounds 2 and 5 and losing rounds 3 and 6. So let's look at round 2. Shout out to Rachel, by the way, for, just, her channel. She's just started a YouTube channel where she's, kind of marking her journey, going over games, analysis, all that kind of stuff. So I'll leave a link to her channel down below if you want to go check that out. But I'm playing against Rachel in this game, here playing with the black pieces. And in the first 3 games, I played the Hippopotamus Defense that we're covering today. In the last game, for the first time in a long time, I did not play the Hippo. And I'll share with you why. Okay, I know that's a surprise, but I'll share with you why when we get there. But obviously in this game, I'm playing the Hippo, and we're just starting with this position, right? Most of you know what it is by now. 2 fianchetto bishops, 2 tuck knights, 6 pawns on the 6th, the rank, unless we have a pawn on c4 or a pawn on f4. With this pawn on c4, a6 is pointless. It just is. The only reason we'd want to play a6 is to prep c5 so that knight b5 can't happen. But we can never respond to a5 from white with b5 because of the pawn there. We can never play b5 ourselves because of the pawn on c4. So a6 here is simply a waste of time. Because of that, I play the move bishop b7. Now we see the move of knight h2 from Rachel, and I ended up going with this idea of knight c6, attacking this pawn twice and attacking the pawn on h4. Keep that idea in mind. This is one idea that Eric Hansen used to beat Anna Kramling when they were playing a blitz OTB chess game. I'm attacking the pawn twice. Now here, Rachel could have brought the knight right back, and that's fine. I think black here has a number of options. One of them is taking this pawn, taking again. We're down a piece for a pawn, but then we play e5. We have a nice little fork there. And if the queen wants to run, okay, we take the bishop. Now we have moves like queen e7, queen f6. Pretty even game here. Things are fizzling out. I think both sides have chances, depending on, what kind of positional mistakes are made from one side. But after the move of knight c6, we instead see this move of bishop e3, defending the pawn. In that case, I go, you know what? Okay, fine. I'll snatch off your pawn. And here I ended up bringing the queen back to e7. Now I could castle queenside, but I didn't want to run it in knight h4, simply giving up my pawn right back. Okay, I'm up a pawn. I want to keep it. Let's play queen e7. f4 is played. I'm not going to lie here, guys. I was a little bit concerned. I am up a pawn, but in return for that, white does have a very active h-file. And now with these 4 pawns in the center, this is wiping out 6 squares on the 5th rank. This is something to be concerned about, right? There's a lot going on here, a lot of squares that are attacked. It's going to be hard for us to, and challenging really at the end of the day, to play a position like this as black. However, black is better here, according to the engine. Slightly better, not winning, but a slight edge. I would also add, though, that it's hard for white to move on in a position like this as well. It's kind of interesting. We'll go over that. A 4-pawn center, it's hard to play against, but it's also hard to play with the 4-pawn center at the same time. Here I decided to castle queenside. Castling kingside, guys, why would I ever want to do that, right? Put my king on the opposite side of their king so Rachel could just start going crazy on that side. I'm good. Okay, I'm going castle queenside. I don't want the smoke in that sense. I want the kings on the same side of the board so that Rachel has to really assess how she wants to push. And when she does, her king is going to be more weak than if I put my king on the king side, right? So we had that move of queen c2 now. I ended up playing g5. Now, there's a number of moves here that Rachel could have played. I was thinking about this move of g3, and I think that this is a solid move that she could have went with. The engine also likes moves like taking, queen d2 after that, just attacking the pawn. There's a number of things that white could go with here, but I like the move of g3, just maintaining the 4-pawn center. I, as black, would probably think about a move like king b8, again, this is just a very strong presence. It's challenging for black to attack it, but it is possible. And I will also add that it's hard for white to push. Let's just look at one pawn at a time. What happens if white pushes any of these pawns? All of them are mistakes. f5, is this good? Nope, we take. And you can't take back unless you want to lose your bishop with check. Okay, f5 doesn't work. What about e5? Well, now that opens up, right? We take. Once you take back, I don't really care which way you take back. Knight b4, we're attacking the queen. We're attacking your rook, slicing and dicing here. Great game for black. d5, whoa, you just opened up this diagonal, right? Anytime someone pushes a center pawn up to e5 or d5 on our side of the board, one of our bishops is going to get activated. It's just the geometry of chess. There's no way around that. So in this case, we could play a move like knight b4. This is a similar position to what we got in the game, and we'll go over that more in a moment. And going back to this position, if we see a move like c5, all right, I mean, let's just take. All right, we have a lot of support for that pawn. We don't really want to take with the b pawn at any point because then our king's a little bit more loose, but this knight and queen are ready to jump in. At this point, we could take with the knight. We could take on f4. We could play knight b4, the engine move. A lot of good moves here for black that are simply crushing. All that to say, after g5, black is completely okay here. We just got to be careful going forward. But instead of g3, we see the move of d5. And this is a mistake because of the fact that our bishop activates, right, the moment you do that. Now I can play this move of knight b4. And notice, when you push this pawn, you're not just weakening the diagonal, you're also weakening c5. So my idea here is to attack this queen, right, eventually come back to a6 and fight for that c5 square. In the game, we have the move queen a4. I ended up deciding to just snatch off that minor piece. And if a move like queen takes a7 was played, which Rachel, did not do, which was a good decision, I mean, I could just keep playing here. I could take the pawn. The queen's close to the king, but how does white follow through here? I mean, the king's covering b8. Our bishop's covering the light squares. c7's covered. b6 is covered. b7 is covered. The only square that's not covered is the queen, right? And if anything, at some point, white might have to worry about us playing knight a6 and trapping the queen in there on a7. So, we take that pawn. We're eyeing the pawn on e4. If you take our bishop, okay, we're taking on e4. We have a checkmate threat. If you take out the knight, thanks for the bishop. If you block with the rook, check again. I mean, here it's black that is really the one with the greater attacking chances, and we're up in material around -7 for black. So going back, we instead see the move b takes c3, much better move. In this case, I play knight a6. Notice just how weak c5 is for white, right? And just how strong of an outpost that's going to be for us. For the rest of this game, unless there's some kind of capture, no pawn for white can ever defend/attack c5. It's just not possible. And because of that, it's a great outpost. Okay, now after bishop f3, I ended up taking on f4, and I could have played knight c5 here. Nothing wrong with that, right? Bringing one of the knights there, but in this case, I went with the move of queen f6, just going, you know what, I'm going to attack your bishop, slice down your dark squares, bishop d2 is played. In chess, I talk a lot about improving your pieces, but we also got to talk about not letting your opponent improve their pieces. Now, in this case, if we look at any pieces for white that are ready to spring into the action, the one that stands out to me is the knight on h2. I mean, this knight is ready to jump into g4, attacking the queen, attacking the pawn. Maybe white gets a pawn back there, right? Maybe this knight at some point goes back to e3 and starts defending stuff. I just don't want to let knight g4 happen. How can we prevent white's pieces from becoming active? In this case, there's a very simple solution: pawn to h5, right? Now this does weaken g5, and we have to be mindful of that. Anytime we move a pawn in chess, a square is weakened. However, in this position, there's no way for white to take advantage of g5. I mean, right now the bishop's attacking it, but what else can? There's no pawn that can attack it. The bishop can't get there. The knight can't get to f3. The queen can't. The queen's kind of in a weird spot right now. So h5 here, making some space, but more importantly, preventing this knight from getting active in the game. In the game here, we have knight df1. I play queen e5, just trying to slowly improve my pieces, centralize my queen. I finally jump a knight into c5. I wasn't in a rush to do this. Right now, I could have done it right away, but it's kind of one of those things. I can do it whenever I want. So why not, play a move like h5, get our queen centralized, and then look to play knight c5. Right? You got to think about what kind of moves you're going to have forever and what kind of moves kind of have a shorter time span. Right? Sometimes you got to be in a rush. Sometimes you can take your time. In this case, we have bishop e3. Quick question. When you look at this position, what's the biggest weakness that you see for white? What's the weakest pawn that we can go after? In my opinion, it's this pawn on c4. Kind of reminds me of the Nimzo Indian, the Samish variation, if you guys have ever heard of that. But here we play this move, bishop a6, attacking the pawn. There's no pawn that can defend it. There's just no pawn that can do it. So, in the game, we have the move of queen d2. Now, I could have captured here, right? I could have captured. Technically, I'm okay. I just didn't want to complicate things, right? I'm winning this position. Why complicate things? Right now, if I'm losing, I want to complicate. I want to try to get my opponent to make a mistake. But in this kind of situation, queen d2 is played. I'll just drop back. You want to attack my queen? Okay, e5. The bishop takes. Let's capture back with the knight. You don't want to take with the pawn here, guys. This is a great outpost for the knight, attacking a ton of light squares, and white can't get rid of it. The only way I can see for them to get rid of it is if this knight somehow makes it over to a square like b3, which is going to take forever. Okay, right now the knight can't even move. Our knight's stopping, our pawn is stopping that knight from activating g4, and the knight here as well can't move to any of those squares. So, I mean, even if this rook does move, it's still going to take 1, 2, 3, 4 moves to get there. The bishop can't attack it. No pawns can. The queen. I mean, look, if you want to get rid of my knight with your queen, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, we're just up 6 points there in that case. So 7 with our extra pawn. So yeah, I mean, this knight is just a monster attacking a bunch of different stuff. We have the move of queen e2, defending that pawn on c4. How can we put more pressure on this pawn? Well, we don't want to play a move like b5. That's a bad idea because then white fixes their pawn structure, right? We don't want to play b5 because they take. Let's play the move of f5. Right, attack the pawn on e4 twice. You know, in this case, Rachel could have captured on f5, but in that case, e4 is played. We're attacking the bishop. We're attacking the pawn. So if you do take on e4 or try to save your bishop somehow, we could take on c3, but we could also just pin the bishop right away, right? Why not? Rook f4 could be played to try to save the bishop, but this is a great improvement for us, right? If we go back, we could take on c3 right away. That is winning, but why not pin that bishop first and force a move like rook f4? Very active rook for us on e8, very inactive, kind of awkward rook for them on f4. This is in our favor. Now we can think about a move like queen takes c3, among other things, but I would probably just take that with a check and continue here with bishop takes c4. I mean, just crushing game for black. So after f5, we see the move king b2, defending that pawn. I now continue with queen d7, looking towards that a4 square. E takes f5 is played, e4. Right, attacking the bishop. Whole idea, again, if you take, we can pin that bishop to the queen. Not good for white. So here Rachel takes on h5, but I have queen a4. This pawn is indefendable. Very next move, I'm able to capture it off, and I was fine with a queen trade here because at the end of the day, I'm just going to go up a bunch of material. I was looking at this move king a3, but I can just let you take the knight. I mean, if you take the knight, that's fine. I just took your minor piece. I can take the rook now. If you capture, knight takes f1, rook takes h1 there, and we're up a ton of material. And if you take with the rook, same thing. Like, white can push all they want. They're just not going to be able to force that pawn to the end. So knight takes a4. I now take this piece off. I'm up a piece here. Rook f4 is played. Why not capture a pawn off and defend a pawn at the same time? g4 is played. Rook h3. I play the move of, rook dh8, forming a double battering ram. Rachel here plays the move c4, and then, I took a little bit of time thinking, and then she ended up resigning. There's a bunch of moves here that work. I mean, taking is winning. Blocking the pawn's a good move. Taking with check, I mean, why not? Black's just a lot better here. So I would say overall, I mean, this whole idea is kind of interesting. What Rachel did, playing this move of knight h2, allowing me to win that pawn. In return, she does get some tempo. She gets, a king on the queen side and a really nice center. I think it's just at this point, how does white continue to build without giving us any kind of weaknesses, right? I think maybe white could have pushed a little bit more on the king side at some point, as weird as it sounds after casting queen side. It's just, the issue with, pushing with a move like d5 is that our bishop activates and c5 is weakened. That allows my knight to attack your queen, and just as highlighted, end up triangulating to c5, which turned out to be a very good outpost. So that covers the game with Rachel. Now in the next round here, I'm going up against my guy Sham. Now, national master player, very strong. I'm playing with the white pieces, and y'all know what I'm doing. Playing the Hippopotamus Defense. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the whole game because I was playing in a shorter time control. And once you get under 5 minutes, you don't have to keep notation anymore. And I try to when I can for the channel, but in this case, it was just too crazy of a game. But from what you will see, I think there's a lot of different Hippo ideas, not even Hippo ideas, but just kind of King's Indian attack, King's Indian defense type ideas that can apply to a lot of different openings. Let's take a look. So we reached this position. I'm going up against my guy Sham, who is very close in age to me. We grew up at the same time playing chess in California, and here in the National Master title back in the year of 2016. very, very strong player. And he plays this move e5, 3-pawn center is black. I end up playing h3, just continuing with my regular Hippo idea. There's no pawn on f5. Okay, h3 is valid. Now here d4 is played. Now the engine has us playing moves like castling kingside, moves like taking, moves like bishop a3. My personal approach to a position like this is locking things up. Okay, and this is very sound. It's not like the engine hates this move or anything like that. And as you can see, we have locked up pawn structure. Now, as a Hippo player, we got to ask ourselves, which pawn are we never going to move? I talk about this in my course, right? Which pawn are we never going to move? Which pawn are we going to push like crazy? In this case, I try to stay away from pushing this pawn, okay? Because the second we do, black can take. This pawn on d3 would become backwards, and there's a d4 outlet for black that is very strong. But f4, why not? Okay. Now, knight h5 is played. All that being said, when you're playing the Hippo, when you're playing the King's Indian attack, King's Indian defense, you got to be careful to not be premature in pushing your f-pawn too early. In this case, f4, it's a good idea in the long haul, but right now it's just too soon. Why is that? The short side diagonal is going to get weakened. Right now it's not because there's a pawn there, but once you take, what do we do here, right? I mean, if a move like knight takes, I mean, we're going to lose our pawn on g3 with the rook being attacked. That's not fun. If we take with our pawn, black could check our king right away, or they could take on f4 and then check. And now we're losing our knight, we're down a pawn, and our king is not safe at all, right? So instead, I play this move of castling kingside. Okay, you don't want to be premature, right? It might be tempting to play f4 and try to play attacking chess. You don't want to overextend before your pieces are even ready. Play the move of castling kingside here. Now Sham goes with the move rook b8. Good move. f5 here. Is it a good idea to play this in a position like this? Of course. That's why Sham played the move of knight h5. However, right, that move f5 is too soon here. We can capture off. Here's the issue. If you take with the rook or with the bishop, g4 fork. We're winning material there. Now, it might look like our king's getting a little bit exposed, and technically it is, but if we play soundly there, we're simply better. Okay, simply winning. So, okay, g takes f5 is a move that black could play here. In that case, let's take on d4, right? Giving up a piece for a pawn, but we're now eyeing the hanging knight because the g pawn got distracted. If you take on d4, we can take it, and you can get your pawn back temporarily, but now we play a move like rook ac1. The second your knight runs away, thanks for the pawn, we're up a pawn again. And if you take on d3, rook fd1, I mean, taking that pawn is just a bad idea. The knight's under attack, the queen, the second this knight moves anywhere, the queen's going to be under pressure as well. For example, let's just say we see a move like knight t4. We could move this knight, but in this case, we could also move the bishop back. I don't see where that queen's going. I mean, no matter where the queen goes, we're going to win it. So black as well needs to be very careful here to not do this prematurely because of these take ideas on h5. So we see the move rook b8. And now I play bishop c1. Now, if I have to do this again, I'm not going to play bishop c1. The reason for that is because black has a fianchettoed bishop here. And there's an idea that I learned in this game that I wasn't super aware of before. Okay. We'll get into it in a moment, okay? But part of the reason on this channel, I don't just show my wins, but I show my losses as well, is because I don't want to just show you what to do in the Hippo, the greatest examples of the Hippo, but what not to do in the Hippo. Common mistakes a player can make, even like myself. I've been playing the Hippo like nearly every day for over 2 years. I still make mistakes. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to get better. That said, the tweaks I'm making are very minor, right? And honestly, my understanding of the Hippo in general is pretty well-rounded. But of course, anytime you play a chess game, you're going to run into a new situation. You're going to run into a new player. I don't care what opening you're playing. If you're a master, if you're Gary Kasparov and you're playing the Sicilian Najdorf, in my opinion, the best Najdorf player who ever lived, when he's playing the Najdorf, he's still running into players. He's still playing games that give him new positions. And because of that, he learns more about the Najdorf, right? That's just how it works. So bishop c1 in general is a great idea, and I talk about this in my course. I talk about this all the time on the channel. When you have a fianchettoed bishop, if the bishop's not active, bring it back. All of a sudden, you have a more active piece. But in this case, it's a little bit too soon. Okay, if I had to do it again, probably play a move like king h2. a4 is good as well, but I think king h2 is nice because now f4, if black takes, if I want to, I can take with my knight. I'm not worried about g3 anymore because the king defends it. So this is just a nice little move to tuck the king away, defend some pawns, and give our pieces a little bit more maneuverability. But instead, I play the move of bishop c1. Now, f5 is played. Here, I could have captured, right? I could have did that. I actually, I could have played a move like bishop a3, which the computer likes. I will say that after f4, even though we win this pawn on c5, and the computer says we're slightly better here, to me, it doesn't feel super comfortable. It does feel defendable, but I do think that white needs to have time on the clock to navigate a position like this. And this was in the shorter time control, so I didn't feel super comfortable in a situation like this. Going back to here, right? If we take on d4, this is a line that I did not see during the game. Okay, I thought about this, but then I went, oh, wait a second. The queen takes, and when I take that knight, I lose my rook. But of course, Stockfish here says white's better. Okay, we're down 4 points of material. Stockfish doesn't really care. We have the move bishop d5 with check, king h8. I was looking at this position trying to figure out, do I have any tactics? Do I have any attacking ideas? Turns out there's only one move, knight f3, coming towards g5. And yeah, white here with an attacking advantage. Let me know what you think of this position below. There's a lot of different stuff that can happen. Let's just say bishop f6, trying to stop the knight from jumping in there. Bishop h6, the queen's attacked, the rook's attacked, the bishop's active, and the queen's eyeing your king. Where's the queen gonna go? Let's say it goes to c3. Well, then we take your rook for free. Now we're up in material and we're attacking. So yeah, I mean, crazy line there. That's not one of those lines where I look back and go, oh my gosh, I should have saw that. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, just the whole idea of just, going, you know what, take my rook. I don't care. I'm going to check and I'm going to just start attacking you like crazy with discovery ideas. But again, that's an idea that I'm going to take into future games. After f5, I instead play the move f4. Playable, right? And we have this pawn cube here. These can be very difficult to calculate, right? Because what if black takes and we take? What if black takes here and we take? What if black doesn't take? What if black takes here and that's it? What if black take, there's so many different things that can happen from both sides. Sham continues the move of bishop e6. I do want to say, if black takes here, we can take with our pawn. That's fine, right? We're okay here, right? Nothing to freak out about. If black takes on e4, I honestly just think that kind of helps white activate their knight. I think we're okay there. So after the move of f4, we had that move of bishop e6. I end up playing king h2, queen c7, and I take this pawn. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes in positions like this, it can be a good idea to take away from the center in the hippo so that your bishop is more active. But after g takes, I end up playing the move of knight f3, just trying to put some pressure on that pawn. There's a lot of different ways that black can go wrong here. e4 was played, which is the best move in the position. Black played a very strong game. But yeah, if I move like bishop d5, I can take, right? That's fine. If you want to take, I'll take again. If you want to take on g2, I'll take with the king. Whenever you do take back, I have a move like knight f4. Very active piece. Black here, notice they have an isolated pawn. So, I think that's good news for us. And going back, if a move like e takes f4, we can take with the knight right away. If you take, the bishop takes back. Our pawns are covering a lot of the squares around our king, and this bishop is slicing and dicing, really skewering the queen to that rook, and we're about to go up the exchange. So, solid game there. But instead we have this move e4 now. This is when things get crazy, and this is really when my clock started to burn, which I think is kind of the downfall of my game here. As we'll see at the end of the notation, I had an even game. But I think because I was down on the clock, I just didn't have the time to calculate and defend things as well as I could have if I had more time. And that's just something that comes with experience. I haven't played in a while, so I'm getting in that groove, trying to get back into that zone of time and clock management, right? But okay, I play that move, knight g5. Bishop d5 is played, and I end up capturing off that pawn. Now, I really do wish I would have saw this move. But again, the crazy thing is here, if black takes, I'm looking at this like, okay, I take the bishop. Oh, wait, I get checked, right? But then it turns out in this position, we have two minor pieces. Black has a rook and a pawn. Two minor pieces is better. Now, this knight on d5 might not look very comfortable, but somehow everything turns out to be okay. There's just a lot of crazy lines here. Even d3 looks very annoying, very hard to deal with. If you take on e4, the engine has us taking because you can't take the knight on d5 because of the pin. right? So a lot of these lines, again, in this game, I'm not like kicking myself for not seeing, but yeah, knight c3 is a good move there. I ended up taking on e4, and after bishop takes, I captured again, and here played the move of knight c3, right? Now, some of you might be wondering, and for good reason, why did I not take this pawn? It's a free pawn, take the freaking pawn. Well, the problem is queen e7, and I was really having a hard time with what to do in this position. The knight's under threat. If I run away with the knight somewhere, d3 happens. This is why I regret, by the way, playing bishop c1, because these d3 ideas were so prevalent in so many of my calculations where my knight's under attack and the rook's under attack. Whereas if my bishop's here and you do that, I mean, okay, right? In this case, we could take with the knight and defend the bishop. In a lot of cases, we could just ignore it, you know, depending on the piece placement. But again, yeah, I mean, d3 is a big threat there. If I clog it up with my queen, then we have a battering ram on my knight. I can't defend it well. And if I move my knight, I lose the knight on e2. Of course, I could play a move like knight c3, but then I lose that one. So, you know, I didn't like knight takes e4. I still don't. Knight e6, why didn't I play this winning a rook? I was really concerned about playing this position from a practical standpoint. And the engine has things just about dead even. So even though we're down in material, the engine has it as dead even, which shows just how much initiative that black has here. You know, d3 is still an idea. Black actually could have played d3 instead of taking that minor piece. And black has a passed pawn on e4. I just couldn't find a way to do anything impactful against these pawns. You know, the engine's having us kick that knight and then play knight g3, tucking it. It's still a hard position to play, though. I mean, these pawns are really not going anywhere at the moment. The knights are going to start springing in, doing stuff. It's a hard position to play. So instead, I play the move of knight c3, right? Attacking the pawn on e4, looking at d5, but also, more importantly, attacking the knight on h5. Of course, knight takes g3 is played. I ended up capturing back. D takes c3, knight e6, getting that fork finally. I capture off the rook, bishop e3. The move of bishop d4 is played. I actually think that knight d4 would have been a better move because this is more limiting to my setup at the moment. If I take captures back, I'm kind of in that scenario again where black has a passed pawn and I can't do much about it in terms of attacking it. And in general now, I mean, queen e2 can't work. Queen e1, I got to worry about, you know, fork ideas. But when the bishop comes in, I'm not so worried about that kind of stuff. I play queen e2. I have maneuverability. I can play that move of queen e2 because the bishop's not really threatening anything except taking my piece. After bishop takes e3, I take with my queen knight d4, and I literally cannot remember how the rest of the game went. I can tell you from a general standpoint, I made a mistake. Of course, right when I made the move, I noticed that I made it. And I ended up going down a pawn and a rook endgame. Now, I held it pretty well, I think. I gave Sham, you know, a run for his money there. Tried my best, at least. But yeah, ended up falling short. Now, this is a position here. I'm up in material, right? But black does have compensation, and they do have a knight. And if you guys have ever heard the term of, you know, if you have a knight, don't resign, that is true. Okay, knights are very hard to play against. Very hard, especially when your opponent has a queen. Here, a queen, a rook, and a knight against my king. I ended up falling in the end game. And yeah, that game ended up going to Sham. Taking away from this game, right? Again, I would not move that bishop back. And I'd also look at the clock a little bit. So just an encouragement to you guys. Everyone has their pace. Everyone has their speed of style and all that kind of stuff. But really think about, okay, how much time do I need at the end of the game to play in a good fashion? Now here in game 5, as the white pieces, again, we're skipping over the draws because they were honestly really boring. Not much happened in them, right? So, okay, we had that move of b6. Here's where I took a little bit of time to think. I think usually I would play the move of a3. In the game here, I kind of played abnormally with the move of a4, just because I felt like, you know what, the pawn here could push maybe at some point and try to mess up black's pawn structure. Maybe the bishop could get a little bit more leverage on that square. But the main reason why I played this was to take up space while knowing that b4 was going to be very hard for black to take advantage of, right? If there was a bishop here, I'm not playing a4 because the bishop could jump right in at some point. If there's a knight on c6, I'm not playing a4. The knight could really take advantage of that square. In this position, though, for black to get the knight here, they'd have to go 1, 2, 3. That's just a lot of time. Okay, and if you want to get your bishop to that square, I mean, go ahead. But now this diagonal is all ours. So I play the move a4. We see the move a5, black just putting an end to any ideas of a5. And now I play this move of rook a2. Okay. Yeah, I mean, a move like rook a2 here is very important. Rook b1 is also possible, defending the bishop, right? But I like rook a2 simply due to the fact that it leaves the a1 square available for our queen to form a double battery ram, which is what we see later on in the game. Here's why it's so important to defend this bishop, right? When you have two fianchetted bishops, because let's say here we play a move like f4, taking up space, which in the game is the next move I played. Now we have knight g4 from black. If we take the knight, we lose our bishop, even material, and we do get the h-file. That's true, but I mean, this dark square is just dominated by that bishop. I'm not feeling good about this position as white, personally. And going back, if we see a move like taking off the bishop, saying, hey, let's take the bishop first, and then take... Oh, wait. Knight takes e3. Black also has an intermediate move, attacking our queen. We don't want to lose our queen, so the second we move our queen, black can capture our bishop, they're up in material, or we could see knight takes g2, a check, and then taking. In either case, I mean, black here is just up material. Okay, black's much better. So when you have this kind of situation, you want to be very careful to not, have a weakness like e3 where black can move the knight and go, look, I mean, take my knight, I'm going to take your bishop. If you do something else, I'm going to use that knight to take your pawn on e3. So because of all that, I play the move of rook a2. Now after bishop b7, now I can play f4. Knight g4 now, I'm just going, what, why? I just take. And if you take my bishop, I take yours. Now we're up a piece. So rook a2 really does solve a lot. Now we have that move f4. Rook e8 is played. I play knight f3. Oftentimes, pushing a flank pawn like that is very well kind of complemented by a knight going right after it, trying to go after some of those dark squares. Knight h5 is played, trying to give some tension between those dark squared bishops. You might see this sometimes when you're playing the Hippo, your opponent also fianchetted a bishop, and then they try to trade off. It's interesting, right? Because we don't want to lose our fianchetted bishop, but they also don't want to lose theirs if they don't have to, right? So, of course, they're trying to get rid of yours, so they're offering that trade. But, both sides end up with some weaknesses, right? Both do. In the game here, I play the move of queen a1. Black ends up taking. I capture back. Now, I don't have a bishop here anymore. So these squares are no longer attacked by a bishop. Of course, my queen is now. I thought in the game, black should have played here, or at least thought about it. I mean, this is one of many moves. And in fact, the move that black made was better according to the engine, but I'll talk about why I don't like it. But first off, let's just say black plays that. I think g4 is a good move here to start, trying to kick the knight around. Let's just say the knight runs and then we take the queen. This is one of those situations. Our bishop's gone, so these dark squares are a little bit weak, but so are black's. It's kind of a trade-off there. So after queen takes b2, we instead see the move of f5. Now, from a practical standpoint, I didn't think that this move was very good because now e5 and g5 are permanently weakened. And what does f5 accomplish? It attacks two squares that are already defended by our pawns. So, I thought that this really made e5 a glaring weakness. I ended up playing the move of g4. Now, if you want to take, I take back with my h-pawn. Now my rook's activated. There's no reason to take there as black. So knight g7 is played. I play the move of knight e5. For the rest of this game, no pawn can kick that knight out. And because of that, e5 is considered a hole, right? Trying to take advantage of outposts. In chess, you want to really look at pawn structure and think, okay, what kind of squares can my pieces go into where they're not going to get kicked out? And what squares should I not go into because they will? In this case, we have the move of rook f8. I play g5, locking things down. Black takes. Plays rook e8. I'm not really totally sure what the point of rook e8 was. Honestly, I'm guessing so this knight could be free to run around. But, when I see that in my head, I'm thinking, I need to support my queen if it's attacked. So I play the move of knight g1. Looks strange, but the whole idea is that when my queen's attacked, I can play knight f3, give that queen more support, and once black took, I take back. Now, this is kind of one of those textbook good knight versus bad knight positions. I mean, our knight on e5, octopus knight type stuff, attacking a ton of different squares, two different pawns. Black has to be very mindful of where they put their pieces so they don't get forked. For example, let's just say black plays that move, which isn't good, but let's just say they do. Knight d7, attacking the rook. Oh, wait, the rook saves itself. Well, we could take the pawn, or we could throw in a check and win that rook, right? So knights are very crafty. They're very hard to play against. In the game, we have rook e7, just trying to limit the activity of that knight. This is one of those positions where I feel as white, I have space, I have activity because my knight is better than theirs. That's really the main advantage that we have here. Let's just start to slowly improve our position and make some space. I play the move of h4. c5 is played. I end up playing king f2 to defend that bishop, so that if d4 is played, which it was, in that case, I defend the bishop now, right? I take on d4, and after takes from them, I capture off that bishop. Rook takes back. When we think about pawn structure here, the pawn on d4 is technically not isolated because of the fact that there is a pawn on the e file, but it feels very weak, okay? If we're thinking about weak pawns, these all feel weak to me at the moment, right? h7, only weak in the sense of looking at the pawn structure itself. Now, if we look at the position, h7 is not weak at all because there's a king defending it. I think if we look at the position right now, I would probably say that these are weaker. Why am I not saying that these pawns are weak? Well, because they're supported by a pawn. If a pawn's supported by a pawn, it's not a weak pawn. At least that's my approach to it. So here I play the move knight c4, eyeing up that pawn on b6 that has no pawn defending it. Now the rook has to babysit. If a move like rook c8, I'll get a nice little fork in. So we see the move rook d8. I try to improve the position here with rook e1, rook d5. Here I drop my rook back. At this point in the game, I was, king f7 was played. I was planning on playing rook e5 and doubling up. But I was looking at this position and it just didn't seem super clear how white, to me, would continue improving. Now, white is better here by far because our knight is very active. This knight is doing terrible at the moment. But after playing that move of rook a1, I go, you know what? I'm going to change my game plan. I bring the rook over. Now, by doing this, I'm well aware that playing rook a1 was a waste of time. Right, but something that I would encourage you guys with in your games, I think I've seen this happen, at the grandmaster level, where a player will make a move and it won't be a good move, but they feel like they got to stick with their plan. Right? Don't feel like you got to stick with your plan if it's a bad plan. The second you realize that your plan is not the best, it's not the most optimal. The second you realize there's something better you can do, just do it. Right? All that matters is the position at hand. That's what matters when you're playing chess. So I end up playing that move rook b1. Very nice move, breaking things open. If black wants to sit there, right, let's just say they go back or something, we'll take. You can't take back or you lose your rook. So black here is under a lot of pressure. We see takes. I take with the rook, knight d6. Let's just capture off the pawn. Rook c5. This pawn's weak. This pawn's attacked. How do we defend it? I play the move of rook a2, supporting that pawn and starting to look at this pawn push. Knight c8 is played. Now my knight is pinned, by the way, so I got to be careful here. I ended up going with the move of a5, just giving that knight some more support. If you want to take it, I have plenty of reinforcement now. I'd probably take with the rook there. And after king e8, I end up taking off that pawn and giving up this material here and now playing check. There's only one move here for black that really survives, okay? Giving up one of the rooks is just silly. And if you play king f7, game over. That's it. So in the game we have king e7 so that, this rook can't mate them. And now I play rook a7 check. Now this is an idea that I want you guys to take away from this video. Okay, going back, it's very easy for some players to go, you know what, let me take the 7th rank. But in this case, why not check first, then play that? We get the same exact position, but instead of playing this right away, where now it would be black's turn, we do check, back, now same exact position, but it's our turn in the game. At move 40, I play rook d to d7. Black takes. We don't want to bring the king back unless we want to get mated, right? So I play the move of king e3, and here black resigns because there's no good way to stop this rook capturing, right? Let's just say, for example, black does that, right? We take. We're threatening mate from this direction. We're also threatening mate from this direction. Because, once we do throw in that check, it might not be mate right away, but these rooks got to start giving themselves up, and the king's too slow to stop either way, okay? Black resigns the game in that instance. Now, this last game, this one hurt, okay? This one was, this one was interesting, okay? It's been a while. I'm not going to say I've never done it, because I've done it a bunch of times, but it's been a while since I've had this big of an advantage and then just blundered it away. Okay, had a completely won game, crushing position. There was a very simple move, couple simple moves to maintain my material advantage, but I played complicated, which I always talk about not doing if you're winning. It was a mistake, and I ended up losing this one. Now I'm going up against Alan Pang. I've played Alan Pang a couple of times, a strong up-and-coming player in SoCal, with the Hippopotamus Defense on my way to the National Master title, and I won both of those games with the Hippo. I start walking over, right, to the tournament section, getting ready to see who I'm about to play in the last round, round 6. At this point, I'm 3 out of 5, right? I got 2 draws, 2 wins, and 1 loss. And I look over, and Alan Pang's watching my channel. Bro is watching the chess giant on his computer. And I'm like, okay, come on. This guy's not just watching the chess giant during a tournament for fun, okay? So I go up to him, I'm like, are we playing? And you know the answer. He says yes. And guess who I'm watching, right? So, I told him I recognized it. And, the game ended up not being for like another 40 minutes or something. A lot of people thought it was going to be at 4. It was at 4:30, the final game. So I knew that Alan was studying for the Hippo for quite a while. I've already played it against him twice and won both times. Now, some of you might be wondering, wait, why does this all matter? Well, it matters because I started prepping something else that's not the Hippo, okay? Because I was thinking in my head, he's studying for a long time against the Hippo. He knows that I play it. He's going over my videos, potentially the ones that I've covered, in games against him. And I go, you know what? I want to play something different. I want to throw a curveball here. And that's what's good about the Hippo. Like, if you're in a situation where maybe you've beat someone with the Hippo or played it against someone at least, multiple times, or if someone knows that you play the Hippo, you can play what seemingly looks like it's going to be a Hippo and then switch it up. In this game, I ended up going with the Neo-Modern Defense. Stumbling upon that, I never even knew what the Neo-Modern Defense was. But yeah, it was fun. I got a good position with it. I don't regret playing it. I plan to release a video on the Neo-Modern Defense soon. I think it's very underrated and can take a lot of players from white off guard. But yeah, as you'll see here, Pang plays this move d4. I play g6, play bishop g7, e4. Usually here I'd play d6. Now, I don't know what he was planning. I don't know if he's planning a 4-pawn center. I don't know if he's planning knight c3, bishop e3, f3, right? Both of these setups are hard to play against as a Hippo player. They're not impossible, but they are hard. So here I play the move of e5. The Neo-Modern Defense, or New Modern Defense, or Revised Modern Defense, right? That's kind of the idea. e5 striking in the center. Now, again, I want to release a video on this covering the ideas on what happens if white takes, what happens if white pushes, all that kind of stuff. Again, big fan of this move. But we have the move knight f3. Now, in that case, I'm out of theory at this point. All my prep was spent on looking at takes and push. And I was also looking, just going to move a couple moves back, knight c3. I was looking at playing the pterodactyl defense, which I've also, wanting to make some more content on if you guys would be interested in that. But I see the move knight f3. In that case, I go, you know what? I'm going to take, put some pressure on that knight. Bishop e3 is played. I ended up playing the move of queen f6. Kind of a crazy move. Reminds me somewhat of one of the options that black has against the Scotch, in terms of that opening theory. But yeah, queen f6, eyeing up that knight. I got 3 attacking pieces on it. Originally against the move of knight takes c6, which is what Alan played here, I was planning on taking on b2. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, bishop d4, I take. If they take with the knight, I'm going to, in that case, just win the rook. If queen takes, they save the rook, but I can throw in a check and then take the knight. I'm up material here. I have a great attack. And then I went, oh my gosh, wait, I'm going to lose my rook, right? And that's what would have happened. That wouldn't have been good. So once I realized that, I go, you know what? I'm going to take with the d pawn. B pawn's fine too, but I take with the d pawn so that my bishop can develop more easily. I ended up playing queen e7 to give my knight a place to run to. Bishop e6, drop the knight back, just eyeing up some of these key dark squares and really activating my dark squared bishop. Bishop f2, I play f5. I'm just starting to put a little bit of pressure on white center. This is the kind of position that I love playing with. I love playing the Hippo, but I also love a lot of other kind of modern defense type stuff. The neo-modern, the pterodactyl. There's a lot of different things that can happen. If white takes here, we capture back with the bishop. Black's just better right now. Just more activity at the end of the day. More development on the way, more activity. White here has an uphill battle to climb. But instead we have that move rook d1, right? Much better option. I end up castling kingside and playing f4. Now I play f4 here for leverage sake. e4 is going to be hard for white to pull off, right? e4 to e5, that is, because I have 2 pieces on that square, and the very next move, I fill that square in. Now, on the other hand, g5, h5, I can push these pawns whenever I want to. And at this point in the game, I knew I was better. I knew I just had to keep slowly improving my position. Knight d2, I didn't want to give white the opportunity to play c5 or even knight b3 and start threatening stuff. I play c5 myself. a3, how can I improve this knight? Knight c6, starting to eye d4 up. Knight b3 is played, right? Also eyeing up the square on d4. In that case, b6, because they're not just eyeing d4. White was threatening to take on c5. So I defend that pawn. Rook d2 is played. Play bishop e5. I'm not in a rush here, right? In a position like this, when white can't do anything, I'm not in a rush. There's no reason to be. Really, the only thing white has right now is this d-file, and every single square highlighted in red is attacked / defended by a black piece. Now, sure, these 3 squares are not, but all of these squares are very well defended. Rook f d1, I ended up playing g5, playing h5, just starting to push. Rook d5 is played. Now, I could have captured the rook, but I'm thinking, why? I mean, I do get the exchange, but then my knight runs. Maybe white, starts to get the knight over to the king side. Maybe I get a check and I lose my pawn. And at the end of the day, what's this rook on d5 threatening? It's not threatening my bishop. I mean, thanks. You traded off and you got nothing out of it, right? You lost material and got nothing. If you take on c5, I mean, come on. And, okay, I play the move queen f6, strengthening e5, eyeing b2. Here, Allen drops back. I play the move of king h8, rook g8. Not in a rush here. There's nothing white can do. Every single one of these squares is covered. I have space. I have the ability to play g4. Bishop d3 is played. Now here I play the move a5, which is a strong move. It's the second best move according to the engine. But g4 is something worth looking at. Now, when I was looking at this, I didn't like how white could take and then just start running. But it turns out I could play a move like g3 and, sure, if you want to place a rook on h1, that's fine. We can run. At some point, the bishop's going to have to run somewhere. And once it does, we're going to get ownership of this h-file. Even if you got your rook there, you have to take, unless you want to lose your rook. And now we still have ownership of that file. Black here with much more leverage. Battery ram, diagonal, rook ready to jump into h1 or h2 whenever it wants to. A knight ready to pounce into d4. A bishop on e6 that has a lot of range and scope. White, on the other hand, let's just switch the board for a second. Does this look fun? To me, it does not. Going back to bishop d3, right? So g4 is an option. It is. I play the move a5, which is also strong, just continuing to strengthen things, really fight for those dark squares. Now, b5 is technically a little bit weakened. d5 is also a little bit weak, but if white ever takes forever to get a knight there, I could play c6 and kick / prevent that knight from even getting there. We see the move knight c1. I play bishop d4. Knight e2, I throw the bishop into e3. Here's the idea. If you take my bishop, I take back. This rook has nowhere to go. The rook cannot move. Right? If you take the bishop, the rook cannot move. If you don't take the bishop, the rook can't move. e5 is played. I take with the knight. Bishop e4. Here was my big mistake. I didn't take a lot of time on the clock. And at this point in the game, I'm up on the clock. I forgot exactly where I was at. Somewhere around the 40-minute range. Allen's probably somewhere around the 20-minute range on his clock. I look at this position for a couple minutes. Quickly play knight takes c4. And of course, right when I play it, or pretty soon after, I go, oh my gosh, that was a big mistake. I play knight takes c4. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, if you take my rook, I take your rook. I take your rook. If you run away with the rook, I move mine. I mean, basically here, I'm just grabbing a pawn, blah, 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 blah. Wait, hold up. We're up in material. We have better pieces. We have more space. We're going to win more material. Why do I need to complicate things here? All I should have done was move this rook to e8 or to f8. Just get that rook safe. The rook is still trapped. I don't know how I didn't spend enough time. I just didn't. That's a lesson I'm taking away from this game for sure. not just the positional side of things, but also just okay, when I'm up on the clock in a key situation, I need to use that time to my advantage. If I just play fast the whole game and never use my time at the right spot, is it really an advantage? I don't know. The rook still has nowhere to go safely. I mean, this is just winning. There, I'm winning. I'm up a pawn. I'm winning the exchange. Even if you go here, I'll take. That's fine. If you want to take again, I'll save my rook. If you ever take the bishop, we take back. Now, you know, the king's in so much trouble after g4. All I got to do is make a simple move here and I win. And I would finish out the tournament with 4 out of 6 if I end up not blundering after that. But instead, I take with the knight. And then I realized that by doing this, I left the d7 square vacant from my knight. Now, at first, yeah, this square is covered. However, there is a replacement and white's threatening mate. I spent a lot of time on this move, but it was too late, okay? There actually is one way that black has an even game, which I'll show you, but let me just show you what I was thinking through in this kind of position. White's threatening mate. Taking doesn't work. And nothing like that, right? Saving this rook doesn't work. I get mated, okay? Going back, if I throw in a check, white doesn't care. They can just take back. I can't take the rook. I get mated. Okay, so once that's played, I'm thinking, okay, what else can I think about here? Now, I look at the move of rook g8, which is what I played in the game, but I also took quite a bit of time looking at a move like rook g7. Now, rook g7 is playable. It's fine. I looked at taking the rook first and then playing rook g7, right? And playing rook g7 right away is fine. It's okay, but it's not optimal. It's better to take first, right? Get your exchange, then play the move of rook g7. The thing that was tripping me up here was I was really worried about rook takes g7 and then going, you know what? Right when I take this rook, I lose mine. I'm losing here. I'm just lost, right? I'm just lost. After rook takes d7, I was thinking, okay, maybe knight d2. Maybe I'm okay here. But then I go, oh my gosh, the queen can just take. They don't care if they lose their queen because Alan would have mate here. Crazy position. Crazy how everything lined up perfectly. Sometimes that happens in chess. You're winning, you make a mistake, and then just somehow everything on your side and their side is perfectly placed for a tactic to work. Yeah, tough times. But okay, I played well, I didn't play it, but I thought about this kind of position. Rook takes. Here's what I missed. Here I can play knight d2 check. I can play rook g7 and then play knight d2. And by the way, when I play rook g7, if you take my rook, I take yours. That's fine, right? I mean, that's totally fine with us. The second that you capture our knight, we throw in a check. We have bishop d2. Black's winning again. Okay, black's winning there. So, white takes on g7. What I missed is that I could check now instead of taking with the king. I could throw in that check. Now if queen takes, I can take the queen because that's not checkmate anymore because I gave that rook away. And now if the king moves, I can take on e4. I'm up in material at the moment. If you save your rook or something, thanks for the bishop with check. If you take my knight, okay, king takes. I still lose my rook, but now queen takes b2. Now we're sitting at even material. I have 3 pawns for the piece with a potential 4th pawn on the way. And now white is the one that needs to play very accurately here in order to hang on. The only move that is not completely losing for white is taking on e3. That's the only move there. Anything else loses. And from this point, we have a drawn game according to the engine, but I think black does have some winning chances. I think that, white also has chances with the knight, obviously, as we've talked about. If you have a knight, don't resign. But that was the crazy line that I ended up missing in my calculations. Following the move of rook d7, I instead play rook gd8. Now, this is playable in the sense that it helps me survive a little bit longer, but it's still about plus 1.5 for white. I mean, now white really is in the driver's seat. Bishop takes a8 was played, the best move there. In that case, I take the rook off, we capture back, and I lose my knight. The bishop was overworked. It could not do both at the same time. I thought about taking the pawn. And there's a lot of good moves here, including bishop e1, which Alan played in the game, which is very strong. But I was worried about queen f7. And this as well is very troubling because, I mean, the queen's right around my king. If I try to get some defense, I still lose my pawn. I still get checked. I mean, this is just not fun. This is not a fun position to look at. So I ended up, instead of that, playing the move of g4, just trying to create some counterplay, but then bishop e1. I thought about queen h6 here. I thought it worked, but then I realized, oh my gosh, bishop c3 going after my king, a bishop on the way. If my king ever touches a light square, I mean, huge trouble here. So I play bishop d4, trying to slow that move down. We have knight takes, queen d5. I save my bishop, and from this point, it kind of all feels forced. I take with my bishop. I avoid a trade. I mean, I got to move there. I got to block if I want to save my bishop. I run away again. I block. I run away again. Bishop e4. I play bishop f5. Queen f8 check. I mean, yeah, this is tough. If I move this king anywhere to these squares, I lose my piece. If I block with the queen, I lose a piece. I play king g5. We get check. If I go to g4, that's mate in 1. If I go to h5, that's mate in 1. If I go queen f6, bishop h4 check, I'm losing my queen. I play king h6, another check, another check, another check, bishop h4. Beautiful move. Very nicely done. Looking at f6 and g5. I can't stop both. And if I take the bishop, I mean, yeah, check, mate, that's game over. So once I saw bishop h4 there, I ended up resigning. Okay, that my takeaway from that game is literally two things. Okay, number one, and this is hopefully a takeaway that you guys can get to. When you're playing over the board tournament chess, or even if you're playing online, if you're playing 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, obviously if you're playing like bullet or something, you know, a time advantage isn't really something that you can really think on, right? Like a time advantage in bullet's like 10 seconds, but, or even 2. But, you know, when you're playing with a longer time control, at some point you got to use your clock, right? Now, obviously, if it's very obvious what to do, you might not have to, but don't get overconfident. Right? Don't just assume that the game is going to be easy. When things start to get a little bit complicated, just take that extra couple minutes that you earned, that you're ahead, and use it, right? Because if you're not going to use your time, why does the time advantage matter at all besides knowing that you're not going to run out? Okay, you got to use it. So, especially when the game gets more complicated. If the game's really complicated, my opponent has 10 minutes, I have an hour. That's a great advantage for me, but only if I use the hour. Only if I use a good chunk of that in those kind of positions. The next thing is just play simple. Play simple. There's no reason to go crazy, right? There's literally no reason. I mean, you know, my whole knight takes c4 move was just a terrible idea. Just my rook's attacked, your rook's trapped, right? Okay, let me save my rook. Your rook's still trapped. Right. So anyways, yeah, thought I'd share that one. And, you know, it's always tempting to not show your losses on a channel, you know, but, you know, I think it's good for you guys to see losses. And I also think, you know, for myself, I'm not going to get better if I'm just showing off my greatest wins, right? I got to show my losses as well. I got to show the moments where I just fall apart. I got to show the moments where I make a big mistake. And hopefully you guys can learn something from that as well. Not the best tournament for me, but again, this was, in my mind, a way to warm up for Las Vegas, which if you guys are, any of you guys, again, are going to the National Open Las Vegas, I hope to see you there. But yeah, this is a warm-up run, and I'm looking forward to Vegas and more upcoming tournaments. Let me know what you thought of this video, and if you'd want to see more videos like this, recapping my games, just giving you my thoughts on them. I don't pretend to be perfect, but I do try my best to show you guys stuff through both my wins and my losses. If you have any thoughts, questions, ideas, let me know down in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell as well if you're wanting more content like this to help you improve in your game and all that kind of stuff. And real quickly as well, I wanted to give a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month of June in 2024. I appreciate y'all a ton. You guys are helping me do this full time. And yeah, I mean, if you haven't checked it out before, I highly recommend that you go check out some of the benefits that you gain by becoming a member. And I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.